Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Media Watch show. Myself, Bob Lovegren, call me Bob, and Rob Raffelli, call him Rob. We've been doing this now for several weeks now, and we're going to continue to do so because there's always things in the news, as you will see tonight. There's a whole, it always changes from week to week. How they call it, what's got the press working, and not always the same. The CNN will see something as especially Don Lemon will see something as anti-Trump in some way or other, and then of course you go to the Fox News, both the financial and the regular Friends or whatever they call the show and so on, and they have their own agenda. Biden, I guess they kind of have to say. At any rate, that's what we talk about here tonight. And as I said, the news is always full of things, and of course this week was the leaking of the decision that the draft that one of the justices has written about a case that has to do with Mississippi and abortion, basically. That looks like it's going to be. They're not going to grant the. They're going to say, Roe versus Wade is history. That's what they're saying, and so on. And I'll get Rob's take on that to start with.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I'm against leaks. Not just leaks against folks I like, but leaking is not supposed to be part of the process.
And especially for the Supreme Court.
Yeah. All right. So what was leaked was supposed to be the full draft of the majority opinion.
Right.
If this goes the way they say it goes, it's 5-4, essentially overturning Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And of course, Roe v. Wade established abortion as a right from the federal government. This would throw it back to the states, so states that like it will keep it, and states that don't like it may modify the access. Anyway, so this was written by Sam Alito.
Yeah.
And of course,
one of the conservative justices, as they say.
Yes, and what the four much more liberal justices, their draft, because of course they'll have an argument as well.
Yeah.
And what was going to happen here was that the majority and the minority on the court are going to go into conference with what they have to say and hash it out, possibly altering their decision, certainly altering the wording, and
wording is being very important.
Yeah, and this process is not done.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
At any rate, so we have a snapshot into one side of it. I'm going to say this about it. People are going nuts over the fact that Sam Alito was saying that Roe was wrongly decided from the start.
As did Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She didn't before she was a justice even. She said it wasn't what she would like to have seen. Put it that way. Something like that.
I didn't
agree with the decision.
At the time of Roe v. Wade, I was very much pro-abortion, much less so now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time of Roe v. Wade, I looked at it and I said, I like the result, but this is wrongly decided.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those law things, and how people are so wild these days about things that endanger our democracy. Well, your democracy shouldn't be just run by 9 folks in black robes.
Right.
So essentially they were saying that the right to abortion was there in the Constitution all along, and the founders were just too freaking stupid to know it.
Yeah,
even though they wrote it.
There was in the Roe versus Wade. What is it?
Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade. Yeah. They in that decision and so on. They based it basically on was it free speech or something like that.
No, they built on the decision that involved Connecticut that involved a right of privacy,
right? Okay.
Which is, again, is not stated, but they claim was implied, and I might buy that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that was back when states were even banning, in some cases, contraceptives or the use of contraceptives. And that, okay, so that became established law, and they piggybacked on that, and somehow the right to privacy also wound up being a right to abortion.
Yeah.
And of course, I would still be a complete and wholehearted supporter of abortion if I didn't think there was some moral question about what it is that's being aborted. If I did, it's really very much a question of whether that has human rights. But my objection, the reason that it was wrongly decided was this was not something that the federal government should be poking its nose in. All of the states have the capability of ruling in that area until they were overruled by the federal government for what looks like specious reasons. So, and
that's what the whole thing is. Like when a lot of the states, it's a case basically. Mississippi, I think they were going to no abortion after the 15th week or something like that. And if they uphold that now, that's what it would be for that particular case.
That's what.
That's still, it said you can still abort, and even in Mississippi, up to 15 weeks.
Right, and if you're not in Mississippi, then the Mississippi law doesn't hold.
Doesn't hold, right? You could go to California and you get an abortion in the. It's a drive-through process, basically. You show up one day, and by the end of the day, you're aborted, and you go back home.
Now, one of the reasons that I don't like much of the stuff coming down from the Supreme Court is you don't actually get the resolution. I watched gay marriage go from something that even gays didn't support and they laughed at to something that has become widely accepted pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought it's silly to rush by 5 or 10 years by getting a court decision when in fact public opinion is going your way and the populace would vote you in, vote your way, and the states would vote your way. I think establish it in law where for the Supreme Court to mess with it, they would actually have to be reaching in and overturning your laws, which they are loath to do.
Yeah.
So I think often people go in a good direction, but they want to rush it. They're not satisfied to see that public opinion is coming their way. They're going to force you. And I understand the impatience because anybody who feels they're being done an injustice thinks it can't be corrected soon enough.
Yeah.
I get that. I've often felt that way myself. But when it comes to running a democracy with 300 million plus people in it.
Let's call it what it is, though, a republic, not a democracy.
Yes, of course it is.
It's democratic, but
I'm actually kind of quoting the people I think abuse the word democracy.
There's a big difference.
I agree.
Not a big difference, but
if the people speak through their representatives in this representative republic,
yeah,
then get around to doing that. They will, they do, and people don't trust when the controversy is raging and things are almost 50-50, when the court comes down and settles it prematurely, I feel like there isn't the peace, there isn't the resolution that would have come from public opinion finally swinging that much farther and just changing the law.
Yeah. Well, I give it a little more historical too. Well, for example, I think the court changed its mind. I mean, I don't know when the separate but equal for schools and things like that, and bathrooms and that, and in the South and so on, was tried in the Supreme Court.
Early to mid 50s.
Yeah, in the 1850s, right?
I'm referring to when we got some feedback.
Why are we getting feedback? Okay. Anyway, okay. So I'm not sure exactly what it was. Roger B. Taney was the one that was involved in that. I'm pretty sure. And that lasted for many, many years.
Wait, so
the Supreme Court came along and overturned it. It decided it was different.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to look at a decision and say...
In current situations, right.
Right. Like we know that the court ruled in the 1850s, in the Dred Scott decision, that black people had no rights that white people were required to respect.
Right.
And in fact, the Supreme Court Chief Justice at the time said, why, if they had rights like the rest of us, blacks could have guns.
And of course, we did have the amendments to the Constitution after the Civil War, which was wasn't just a slam dunk deal to begin with. Even though the southern states weren't even in the Congress at the time, they of course would have voted against it. It changes all the time. Many things that the courts. I remember reading one time that when they established the Supreme Court, they didn't even have a building. They didn't know where to meet. There was just, it was just an idea, really. And John Marshall became the Chief Justice and so on, and changed all that. He made the decisions that I forgot the Marbury versus something or other.
Madison.
Yeah, what?
Marbury versus Madison.
Madison, the president in that case, and now then that became a Supreme Court decision made it the law basically.
And of course, Congress did not overrule them. As Congress can, of its own volition, take some things off the Supreme Court's plate.
Yeah.
It can say this, and this are not for the Supreme Court to rule on, but are strictly ours. And they almost never do. And that might ordinarily be wise. You don't know until you're in the clutch and things are looking bad.
But the Supreme Court's job, essentially, is to determine laws that are made in states if it in fact does, if it's constitutional in the U.S. Constitution. That's
part of it, but they would probably originally thought that it was going to do more adjudicating disputes between states.
Okay, well, whatever. I mean, it probably has a whole history of the Supreme Court we could talk about and so on. But the bottom line is that while this controversy will go on, actually, I like to say here, what this person, that the whistleblower, or whatever they call it, that leaker, that leaked this information and so on, which I believe will finally be discovered to be a woman and a Democrat, and not an older woman either. It's somebody that's a young woman that decides they're gonna throw it all off at this point. Unfortunately, and it's a political thing actually. This thing has been all over the press in the last few days and so on. And to the detriment of Ukraine, that's out of the news at the moment. So it became a story in itself. But like I say, I think that, and I've seen many articles already, that why did the person do it? Well, it probably had to take a lot of the plate, for the election coming up in 6 months. For the House, which everybody says is going to be death for the Democrats. It's going to be a bloodbath, including me, and we'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later. But does this help the Democrats? Does this motivate the Democrats that now the Supreme Court has said, which is all, of course, dominated by the conservatives, and it's 6 conservatives to 3. Except John Roberts, the Chief Justice, is not quite so convinced. In fact, he's not part of this decision. He is the
5-4 decision.
Yeah, the 5-4 decision. He's one of the 4, and he's supposed to be a conservative. That's what we're reading the paper too. That they have 6 conservatives. Well, not necessarily. And let's talk about that for a minute too. The very concept of the Supreme Court. They are appointed for life. And I think in many cases they die in office. I think, in fact, in some cases they actually died in the building. They don't retire. This one most recently and so on. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a justice until the day of her death. And what was it? Scalia was the same thing. And this goes on and on about they served until they died. And there is a not impeach, but recall what is the word I want? Impeach a justice of the Supreme Court, but it's never happened. It has never happened.
Back in the 60s, there were lots of people who were screaming, impeach Earl Warren, and he was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at that time. Yeah,
a Republican who, in fact, was that's the whole idea here, too. Once you get to be a justice of the Supreme Court, you don't care. You're not elected. You can't. You got to have a job no matter what happens. They're going to keep you. They have nothing to do and nothing to answer for. Whereas a politician has to go to the electorate to get reelected, and that's part of a difference. But I think that's the concept that the the founding fathers really wanted to. They wanted somebody that was be there. And of course, Earl Warren, as you said, Earl Warren was a Republican governor of the state of California, I guess appointed by Eisenhower, and didn't quite meet the criterion to be a Republican. He was the one that Brown versus whatever it was.
Brown versus Board of Education.
Board of Education and so on. And he's the one that decided that case.
Let's remember also that in the Second World War, when Japanese Americans were interned,
Yeah,
that
Earl Warren did it.
Earl Warren was, he worked very strongly with FDR
Yeah,
to get that done. And of course, most of that was done here in California.
absolutely. Yeah, that's where the majority of the Japanese that ended up in camps they were there. In fact, people in Hawaii, Japanese citizens in Hawaii, didn't ship them to California to be in the camps, and so they kind of led their. That's a whole different story, of course. Any rate, there we can go on and on about this. Unless you had something else to add.
Well, I do want to say a few things about the Supreme Court thing.
Go ahead.
One is Representative Adam Schiff, I think of Burbank or someplace like that.
Burbank,
the guy
yeah.
who was one of the big Trump prosecutors. He is urging again that they pack the Supreme Court with liberal justices.
Yeah.
So that would be maybe adding
Well,
six,
enough to make it
adding
make it,
six or 10 or whatever, but adding a bunch of justices.
And the Supreme Court has changed in the number
Number has
over
changed.
the years. There's nothing in the Constitution that says it has to be 9 people.
Right, that is not set. Also, Democrats, okay, this is an interesting one. Democrats, of course, have tried to fundraise on the basis of this leaked draft.
Yeah, right.
And that
That's what I'm
fundraising,
saying. They're using it to their advantage. I think
Yeah, well,
that's something they can really operate off
that's
of.
what I'm trying to tell you, is that they have failed to get a surge in fundraising
Yeah,
by trying to fundraise on this.
yeah,
I don't know what that means, but it means something.
yeah.
I will
Talking
leave
about-
that to better, more political people than me.
The last thought I have about it is, they tried to pack the court in the 30s. FDR, who had huge majorities in both the House and the Senate, and he tried to, because he wasn't, some of his programs in the Depression were questionable, and the justices, in fact, were left over. Here you go, left over from the Republican administrations, and they were pretty much all of them basically were not appointed by FDR. They were Republicans, and they turned down a lot of the things that he had proposed, that put the programs, did away with them. And he tried to pack the court. Couldn't do it. The Democrats themselves would not allow it to happen. This is on the Senate, of course, on the Senate side. This is where they decided stuff like that. He couldn't bring it. He couldn't get enough Democratic senators. There was only a few Republican senators. They couldn't get enough to make it give a 2/3 or whatever it was to do it, and so on. It failed, and this is the Democrats president asking a Democratic Congress to do it.
You may
Anyway.
remember that Jimmy
Historically,
Carter.
it's impossible. Put
You
it
may
that
remember
way.
that Jimmy Carter was a Democrat president asking a Democratic Congress to do several things that they balked at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
it's,
true.
It's
Yeah,
not always a
that's right.
shoe-in.
That's true. That's the same with Donald Trump. They always say he controls the Republican Party. Once you get elected, this guy Vance in Ohio, who hopefully will become the senator from Ohio, once he gets, and it was pretty much adamantly against Donald Trump. This is way off base. And all of a sudden, he apologized and he got Trump's endorsement. Well, once he gets to be a senator, then that's a different. And he has 6 years, maybe a different ballgame. I'm sure they elected Mnuchin from West Virginia. He's a Democrat, but in terms of only that he caucuses with the Democratic in the Senate.
Manchin, and
Manchin.
and if they get surety with him, he may just switch to the Republican Party and most likely be reelected.
Yeah, that's true too.
Except
And that's happened many times before. Who was that senator from Connecticut that actually gave a speech at the Republican convention? And he was a nominee.
Was it Chafee?
No, I can't remember. Anyway, I think it was Connecticut. But he essentially became a Republican, but he was a Democrat. He was elected as a Democrat from the state of Connecticut. Anyway, that's another story.
Okay.
Well, let's move on here. I'm just let's just throw out Musk. It's not Monk. It's Musk. What's your take on that?
Well, let's first say Elon Musk is the richest person in the world, has started.
200 billion, by the way.
I think it's actually higher, but at any rate, he's started a number of
Whatever.
businesses.
It depends on what the price is at
He
the
was
close.
one of the co-founders of PayPal. That was the first time I became aware of him.
Yeah.
But he's got, everyone knows about Tesla. Everyone probably knows about SpaceX. And of course, he actually wants to go to Mars.
Yeah.
Personally, I think this is kind of interesting. I'm going to just do a quick aside on this because I heard him
Go
being
ahead.
questioned on
Yeah.
TV, and the interviewer says to him, well, this going to Mars thing, isn't that some sort of rich man's toy? And he says, you spend over a year in a tin can subjected to radiation, going to some place where you will work very hard all
Stay
of the
alive.
time to stay alive. And although technically we're saying that we're going to return people, you'll very likely die there.
Yeah.
Is that your idea of a rich man's toy?
risking your life. Really risking your life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he feels. I think I'm a little bit of a fan. I don't try to invest too much in anyone, even the ones that I like, because what the heck, people have a lot of things going on in their lives. Anyone may disappoint. I may disappoint myself.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I'm not worshiping the guy, but I'm impressed with the way he takes things into his head, that he wants to do them. He gives a reason, and you know, he literally is said about. He said when people told him, "I'm going to leave Twitter, you know, if you buy it," and he said, "Well, I hope people who disagree with me will stay."
Yeah.
He says a person who gives you a well thought out critique has done you a huge favor.
Yeah.
He says that's who you need to hear.
Yeah. Right.
So
Exactly.
I mean, if you're saying, well, that doesn't help much.
Yeah.
But if you have something intelligent to say about why you oppose it,
Right.
that could be very valuable advice.
Why is it the liberals are so against this guy? Of course, he's rich, and that, you know,
That's not why.
Have to put him
They-
off right off the bat. Whereas the Republicans really, the conservative side likes him because he has a real idea of free speech. He really thinks that is
Okay,
fundamental.
Speaking as a conservative, I think we have the better facts and the better arguments. Liberals may disagree with me, and if they'll talk with me in a civil way, I hope to learn from them, and I hope they'll learn from me. I'm perfect, and as a former liberal, I actually have some sympathy to some of the thought and ideas.
Right.
I want to get along with people. I've lived my entire life with people disagreeing with me. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So
Now you're speaking
I'm speaking-
are you channeling
I'm speaking.
Musk or yourself?
This is myself.
Okay, I was
I'm
gonna
speaking
say.
as currently a conservative, as a former liberal, as somebody who likes to learn from everyone who has anything to say. I feel fine about free speech platforms, but I think, from my view of most liberal thought, is that it has more emotion than thought behind it. Often the emotion is, I think, well intended. But I think that they tend to lose arguments in a free speech environment, and I think that they lose arguments in the free speech environment. And since, even though they'll lose in the argument, that doesn't mean that they have given up. So I think that they have decided that it's okay to shut you up.
Yeah.
They've even told themselves that they're virtuous for shutting you up. They'll make up a danger. They'll tell you that you're a Nazi, or that you're sympathetic to
Yeah,
whatever.
Nazis,
Yeah.
Or
the worst people on earth. They'll make-
Nazis.
In fact, but because
sides.
that sort of thing doesn't fly on YouTube, you have to be very careful what you say. So I hear some people say things like Yahtzee,
Yeah.
because they don't want it to be automatically flagged and demonetized.
Yeah. Yeah, watch out what you say, if you want to get even as a youth, because now everything goes into the cloud, and it might just come back to haunt you, and so on. That's a problem with the social media.
I looked my name up once, and I found a copy of a fan letter that I wrote to Barbarian Funnies, which was an underground comic. So. Now, I can't imagine why anyone, including me, would want to read that fan letter.
Right, exactly.
But it's there.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more too, sitting out there somewhere.
possibly all the emails
Yeah.
that I ever wrote about what does and doesn't comply with specifications at Delco Electronics.
Yes, I think free speech is a fundamental of this country. A lot of times like at Facebook and things like that, you see, free speech is your right to say whatever you want. But go along with that, it is also your right not to listen to people that are talking. You don't have to hear what they're saying. That's what gets me is people that say, "Well, free speech," but I'm making a judgment for the rest of the universe that I think that this free speech is not right. We should not do it, and so on. And I'm speaking for all humanity,
So something I'll say,
but you're not.
something I've seen
not.
defended as free speech that absolutely isn't and is completely wrong, is folks who go to a speech and try to drown it out.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you go. That's
I'm
exactly right.
I'm adamantly opposed to that. That includes the speeches of people whose speeches I hate. That's the wrong way to go about it. You don't silence someone. In fact, when you silence people, you turn them into a clique of people who feel like they're oppressing us. They can't face the truth. Anyway, it can turn them into something much more dangerous than they were.
Yeah.
You don't silence people. You discuss it with them.
Who was the famous French philosopher that said, I believe in your right to free speech, even though he made this?
Voltaire, though I
Yeah.
disagree with what you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it.
The right to do it. And of course, that was in the French Revolution, and that we know how that ended up and so on. But at any rate, it was the beginning of free speech. But you always have to lean to that, free speech. And like I say, you don't have to listen to it.
Okay, related topic.
Ignore it. I ignore Twitter, basically.
Related topic that we were going to get to anyway belongs here.
Okay.
That topic is the Ministry of Truth.
I was going to say, this information.
Exactly.
They want to establish and so on.
So why do I say Ministry of Truth? I
Well,
say
that's right.
it.
Yes, right.
I
You
say it
corrected me on that
because
before. Yeah, you're right.
it's a reference to
Who decides what's misinformation?
yes, and it's specifically a reference to the dystopian novel 1984,
Yeah.
written by Eric Blair in 1948, and he just reversed the last two digits of the year to make it sound futuristic, and it was dystopian because the state was in utter control of everything, including everything you heard, saw, and were allowed to say, and they watched everything. Hence,
Yeah, right.
Big Brother is watching.
Yeah.
So the main character, Winston Smith, worked at the Ministry of Truth, where he was busy falsifying history.
Yeah. And
So-
that's, who writes the history too. Let's change the subject completely because I do want to show this. We have a roll
Oh,
in
yeah.
here.
2,000 Mules.
2,000 Mules. This is a documentary
Mm-hmm.
about the voter. Well, what you introduce it.
Okay. I'm not sure how many of you have been watching the films of Dinesh D'Souza. I rather enjoy him. He's Indian-born, naturalized U.S. citizen, huge fan of America, huge fan of the American system, and he has had a number of political documentaries that he's done in the last couple decades. And this one is about, I'm going to use a nice word, I'll say shenanigans that we know occurred
Yeah.
during the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Now, as to what the effect was, or what their extent was, I haven't even seen the movie yet, though I hope to soon.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that they've gone ahead and done a lot of detective work and found out
Yeah.
what shenanigans have happened, and I'm eager to see the movie and see how extensive it looks and how damning it looks,
Yeah.
or maybe it isn't that
I don't
damning.
want to see it. I want to at least see it and so on. I have
so-
a story to tell.
So
after.
this is Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules, and mules, like drug mules, these are people who are carrying something very discreetly and depositing it someplace else.
Can we see the trailer?
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure.
Election in American history.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I think millions of Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces, and no one's really put it together.
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
If I believed the president were a Nazi, I might steal an election.
Bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
We have been working on something big.
Show me the money.
Can we meet? I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average of 24 drop boxes. But Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
And in no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
What you're about to see is disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning?
On one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties to 27 different drop boxes.
I call it the Mexican mafia, seriously, because they work like that.
This is jaw-dropping.
What you showed is frightening.
It's just sickening to me.
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking enough to tip the balance in the 2020 presidential election?
It's not a leap to say this would have made a difference.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
This is a movie that's currently in selected areas of the country to be shown. I have a suspicion, however, and it's supposed to be on what do you call it, streamed here. And
okay, I happen to know that if you use the numbers 2000,
yeah,
2000mules.com will show you how you can see it.
Yeah. Anyway, but that may not last, depending upon Facebook and
right.
Twitter and this sort of thing. The Department of Misinformation. That the Department of Homeland Security is not, Homeland Security is setting up as we speak, and so on. I just have to tell you that elections are kind of messy to begin with. Democracy is a very messy business. I once heard there was like over 300,000, 350,000, 400,000 people that are involved in elections, counting the ballots and so on. Which, by the way, to quote the great line. Stalin, give me the right quote.
It doesn't matter.
This is Stalin, Joseph Stalin. Go ahead.
It's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes.
Counts the votes, right. And there's probably mistakes are made, and in fact, a lot of shenanigans and so on. Now, in the state of California here, Trump lost by 3 million votes, both times I think it is, in 2016 and 2020 and so on. He lost by a very significant margin. So it's pretty hard to imagine that there's 3 million votes. However, as in the 2020 election, as our director was saying, what's the number? There was the difference of 40,000 votes in the certain states and so on that did make the difference that then Trump would have gotten the electoral votes for that state and so on and won the election. A difference of 40,000 votes. That's possible.
All right, the other finger on the scale, not to steal the thunder from 2000 Mules, but the other finger on the scale was suppression by Twitter and others of the New York Post's Hunter Biden laptop story, which they have by now admitted was genuine.
Yeah.
That was breaking a few weeks before the election.
That's right. That's right.
16% of Democrats have said if they'd known what was on that they would not have voted as they did.
Yeah.
That would have certainly thrown the election to Trump, and that was extreme Democrat-leaning organizations who suppressed a genuine and truthful story.
That's what even the guy says on this that roll in there, the trailer. He says, fair and, what was it? Fair and elections and so on. There's never been a fair election. There's always something that's as you said, that we're using shenanigans going on. You think they had in 1840 in New York, and when you went to the polls were in a bar in New York City. Guess who won? In that case, it was Republicans, I think, to some degree.
The drinkers.
And also keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, especially Democrats and liberals out there talking about it, two can play that game. I guess I'll tell the quick story here, and I'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
But about the mail-in ballots. A mail-in ballot is you give it to a person, you mail it to him with his name on it on the envelope. And then there's the ballot that doesn't have your name on it, doesn't have anything, but the envelope you send it back in has your name on it. You have to sign for it. There's a barcode on it and so on. Your ballot's in that envelope. That's not a secret ballot. That's I've said this many times before in this show, and I say it all the time. If there's anything more sacred in this country, it's a secret ballot. Nobody knows how you voted. I can't tell you how if I told you how I voted, I can't prove it in any way. That I can prove it and so on. That's the secret. A mail-in ballot is not a secret ballot. That's my spiel.
Good spiel.
Yeah. Anyway, it's something we should look forward to. And like I say, two can play that game. And I know for a fact, as a landlord out in Isla Vista who had these mail-in ballots laying on his mailbox, after the fact, of people who had moved, didn't live there anymore, and one day they were there, and the next day they were not there. They weren't there. And also, I'll say at the same time, it's your right to vote. It is that's for sure. It is your responsibility to vote. In Australia, you are fined if you don't vote. They actually fine you if you don't vote. You have to vote. And it's not necessarily easy to do that sometimes. You can't just fill out your ballot and throw it out. Well, in this case, put it in the mailbox, sort of thing. Anyway, anything to add to that?
It is not your responsibility to vote. Don't vote if you don't feel like it.
Yeah, that's a thing. You've given half a vote. In effect, you're actually making half a vote by doing that and so on. But I just have to believe and by the way, I have not voted in every election myself. I can say that, and still and be a hypocrite by saying it.
There's one way in which I always feel good about not voting on some things.
Yeah.
I vote in every election, and what I vote on are those things that I think I know something about.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at an issue that I don't know the people or don't know the issue and haven't had time to come up to speed on it, I think better this should be decided by people who do know something about it.
Yeah.
And I may leave that blank. I do that in good conscience, and in fact I consider it virtuous.
Yeah, and that's your right to do that. I guess say you've made a conscious decision not to vote. It's your responsibility to and you met that responsibility in a sense because you have an opinion and you haven't expressed it and so on. In effect, of course, you've given half a vote to somebody.
I've given a half a vote to each of them.
Yeah, and that's what kind of works out. I guess we haven't really covered we've covered a lot of the topics I wanted to say here. Like McCarthy and this, January 6th. Okay, right ahead. Yeah,
sure.
That's right. You have your own list. I'm sorry.
I do. Not at all. But
no, let's do it.
I just wanted to add a little bit about Elon Musk that kind of slipped past me. One of them is Musk wants to take it private. Twitter is currently publicly traded. That's how he's able to buy the shares.
Yeah.
And the deal closes. It's a deal, but the deal closes in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Until then, he's not in charge. And he said, temporarily, I'll be appointing myself as CEO.
Right.
And he gets to do that.
Yeah.
But
'Cause he owns all the shares, so he can do whatever he wants.
or he and the folks who helped him finance it.
Right. But
But anyway,
okay, go ahead.
and he doesn't plan to remain CEO.
Yeah.
But I figure, look, he enjoys teasing. See, I mentioned to you, but I didn't write this down. Part of his teasing, since people are going, oh, he's buying this, he's buying, who knows what he'll buy next? He tweeted, I'm thinking about buying Coca-Cola next. We're going to put the cocaine back in. Because before 1900, Coca-Cola was more stimulating. All of the things that we know as sodas now were patent medicines that had various active components in them in the early days. In fact, and they weren't carbonated. It turned out adding the seltzer water made it much more palatable.
Yeah.
Adding the sugar made it more
yeah,
palatable. At any rate, Coca-Cola originally contained cocaine.
Yep.
So
Coca-Cola, cocaine, yeah.
Yes. So that obviously he's not going to do that.
Right.
The interesting thing, people were saying, well, what does he mean by free speech? And Brian Stelter, the unreliable guy on Reliable Sources on CNN, he says, well, he's going to allow anything. Actually, we know what he'll allow because he said, I plan to allow all the speech that's legal in that jurisdiction.
Right.
So if it's legal to say,
and
if it's legal to publish, you can say it on his platform.
That's what it goes back to the Supreme Court. The idea you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. To some degree, that is true. I'm not going to go along the whole thing, especially when there's not a fire and you cause a riot and so on. And that's, of course, what they're kind of accusing Donald Trump of doing on January 6th and so on. And that has some validity, I suppose. Not that particular case and so on, but the decision that was made about, like I say, not crying fire in a crowded theater. But again, that is that's a one exception basically.
Sure. Well,
to anybody making speeches, you aren't trying to incite people to do certain things, obviously.
If I saw potential suicide standing on a ledge, I would think that it might be my right to yell jump, but I think that would be a very poor decision, and you should not do that sort of thing. And for all I know, there may be a law against it.
I saw the movie Dirty Harry. Yeah, he did convict him to jump, but then he ended up saving his life. Go ahead.
Actually, first episode of a show that was not on long enough. It was called Sledgehammer, and the cop in it, Sledge.
I remember the name. Yeah.
He was a nut. But we see him driving to work, and there's a jumper on a ledge, and he stops and he gets out his gun and he starts taking pot shots at the wall very near the guy. The guy's like, Jesus. He jumps back in the window. See, you didn't want to die after all.
Exactly right. Anyway, you go on about that one, but I guess I don't know. I guess Ukraine. Let's say talk about that, and that is a huge story. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, they introduced that. You're talking about all these countries are very much against Ukraine, but they're still buying the oil and the gas from and in Europe, and NATO countries are still buying and subsidizing this war.
Yeah, actually, I'm about to give some credit to the Europeans. I thought they should have prepared for this long ago, but at any rate, Germany and some of the other countries in NATO are now looking to source their oil places other than Russia.
Yeah.
I thought, that's nice. You might wind up in a war with Russia, or at least being threatened by them. It would be nice if you weren't relying on them to keep from freezing this winter.
Right, exactly.
So at any rate, I feel like they're doing the right thing. And
but they don't have to do, basically, for their citizens. That's true.
Yes, it's the right thing morally. It's the right thing for their citizens, and I'm glad they're doing it. Yeah. So I'm saying
and they are supporting the Ukrainians with a lot of other medical equipment and humanitarian aid and things like that at the same time.
Yeah, there's now flip side. I saw a YouTube video just yesterday of a woman who is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. And she said that they were fighting for the New World Order. I thought, I'd feel better if you were just fighting for Ukraine. I'm not sure what the New World Order is, but ever since those words escaped the lips of George H.W. Bush in the 90s, it's had a rather bad smell.
Yeah.
But every now and again, somebody seems to want to resurrect it.
It has a liberal communist even a connotation to it, basically.
I'm not sure. It has a globalist, a global governance of.
That always equates to me to somebody that wants to run the world, basically.
Yeah, and by the way,
my idea is the best anyway.
I like globalists, but I prefer to say globalistas.
There you go. That's it. There you're right there. And I just thinking of that, if I might just suggest here, the parliament, they have a lot of people from the parliament of Ukraine, and let's face it, that wasn't a united party. The guy that got elected, he got elected, but there's an opposition party, so that perhaps this person that you talk about was a member of the party that wasn't. They have different things, but there again, it has the free speech and so on. I don't think it's a world order that Ukraine is responsible for, but it is an idea that that is to say the Ukrainian supporting the Ukrainians against the oppressor in this case. I don't want to call them Nazis, but like I say, I have a special dislike for using that term anyway. There was nothing like the Nazis were. There was nothing what the Nazis did in World War II. Nobody else has ever done it before, and hopefully never will happen again. At any rate, but there's a difference of opinion. But there again, it's a free speech thing. They can talk about it. And just one more thought. Putin says that the Ukraine was never a country. And that's to some degree was true. There's a lot of the divisions and so on. But nothing makes a country united. It makes it a country than a war that they're successful in.
An outside threat.
An outside threat, exactly. I mean, we all came together when the towers went down and so on. There was no dissension there, pretty much. We went and got that son of a gun.
You had at least the idea that there was somebody out there who didn't care whether you were a Republican or a Democrat. As long as you're American, they'd be more than happy to kill you.
Exactly. And I'm sure the armed forces is made up of a lot of Republicans and Democrats fighting for our country.
All right, let's flip into entertainment for a second.
Go ahead.
Dave Chappelle attacked on stage
yesterday,
at the
2 days ago.
the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't know who this was, and he's been taken into custody, injured in the process. But
I'm not sure who David Chappelle is.
I've got to show you some videos. The guy is funny.
Yeah.
He uses the N-word, but because he is one, he gets to.
He gets away with it.
he gets away with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the guy's got a genius for comedy. He's not carrying anybody's water. You know, I feel like whether I agree with him or disagree with him about any particular subject, this is really his opinion.
Yeah.
He's not snowing you. He's not saying it because he thinks maybe people would like me to say this, or maybe this is popular.
Yeah.
He'll say something unpopular or popular, as the case may be. But I've got some stuff to show you. But anyway, Chappelle is a very funny guy, very smart, tall, at this point, bald, black gentleman who's, I think he's from Chicago. Yeah. No, maybe not. I don't remember his origin. But anyway, I'm
from Chicago.
He's been doing these. Now Netflix has been doing a series with comedians, and in fact, their series is called Netflix is a Joke.
Yeah.
And he's been on it before, and this was part of that. But here's something I found hilarious about this. There was someone on CNN, I'm not sure which one it was, might have been Sonny Hoskins, but at any rate, somebody blamed Trump because they said Trump created the atmosphere of violence that made this possible. And
January
of course,
6th.
Yeah, like anyway, I think it's quite a stretch. Somebody else at least said, well, maybe it was Will Smith getting up on stage just a few weeks ago and slapping a black comedian. Maybe it's that.
Yeah,
you
right.
And I thought, maybe he's just nuts. Maybe it doesn't have to be inspired by Trump or Will Smith. You know, some crazy people just do what they do.
Well, he's a comedian. That's the whole idea, right? He's going to make fun of people to some degree, including his own parents. But go ahead.
It just reminds me of one of the classics from the Heath Ledger Joker in the Batman movie. The Joker is being questioned, and he's asked about his, what his plan is, and he says, "Do I look like the kind of guy who has a plan? I just do things."
I just do things, right. Let's go spur of the moment, and so on, right?
Now, of course, he had a plan, but the thing is, not every crazy guy does.
Yeah. I was a young guy. They named him, in fact, even that he had a knife. He just didn't push him down. He actually had a knife in his hand.
Yeah.
In fact, he had a fake gun.
It was a fake gun that had the blade in it.
Yeah, that's.
I haven't seen those, but
where do you buy those?
Online, I guess. I don't know.
I guess so.
I haven't seen them in any of the gun shows, gun shops that I go to.
Yeah.
And I haven't been to a gun show in so long, decades now. You know why? Because they stopped being fun.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I've been to a few gun shows myself. I don't own a gun. Well, actually, I do own a shotgun. My wife bought the shotgun years ago. She passed away, and I still have it. Still have it around. Basically, I don't know how. I've never fired it. Basically. Anyway, got a couple more minutes left. Anything else you want to cover?
Well, gosh,
more than that.
I'm
sorry to have dominated the show.
No, actually, I thought I might have stepped on you a little bit.
Now go ahead.
So let's see. Which actor is Daniel Radcliffe? I think he played.
Oh yeah.
I think he played whoever the lead was. Oh, Harry Potter in the Harry Potter movies.
Okay.
Anyway, he's all grown up now, and there's a biopic that's been done of. The subject of the biopic is Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah.
And he's playing Weird Al.
Yeah.
So I like Weird Al. I like Daniel Radcliffe. I want to see this. So I'll be watching to see where it's going to be.
This is an aside to that. Talking about actors and the politics and so on. That always gets me when they're quoted, Robert De Niro and places. They're quoted as being some kind of authority on politics and so on, and their take on it and this and that. And that's the least person in the world you want to take your political views from, it would seem to me. They're entitled to their opinion, of course.
Sure.
But they're sure as hell are not experts at anything that's political.
Yeah, some are smart,
some
get
elected,
aren't.
Of course.
Some are experts, some aren't. But, Robert De Niro's claim to fame was that he liked to use the F word while referring to Donald Trump, and said several times he like to punch him in the face or something to that effect. I thought, well...
No, that was Madonna.
No,
Madonna wanted to burn the house down. That's what
she wanted to blow up the White House.
Right.
But De Niro would speak of punching Trump. And I thought, so? I mean, I don't care. Maybe you want to kick a dog, too. Doesn't matter. Do you have anything to contribute to the discussion? I got the hostility part.
Yeah.
So...
But the bottom line is that gets published, that this Robert De Niro said that and so on. And
he's a star. The man is paid to emote. That's what made his fortune, and that he emotes better than most other people. Now, remember about the star system. We don't need to have movie stars. Every movie could be staffed with complete unknowns who would be actors just as good as every actor you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be bankable. So fame is a marketing tool.
Yeah.
So if Robert De Niro is famous and they use him again, yeah, sure, he's good. Don't take that away from him. It's just that people that good in acting are not in short supply.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Johnny Depp, this thing has been on TV, and they made a big thing out of this on CNN and so on. And I don't care one way or another.
It helps drive. Look, what do we have? We have
selling pillows. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have inflation.
Yeah.
We have really a huge border crisis, and this is the sort of thing. If we can make it about Will Smith slapping somebody, if we can make it about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and suing each other after divorcing, well, that drives inconvenient news off the
right.
Off the front page.
viewers will see it because this is something they can understand. You talk about inflation and the Fed, the economics in general and so on. But this is something that they can watch, and it's entertaining, and it draws an audience that advertisers like, and so on. There's this guy that sells pillows. That's where he sells them, with people that are watching television.
I have another Roe v. Wade angle.
Go ahead. Got a minute here.
What I liked about this, okay.
2 minutes. Go ahead.
Schumer, Senator Charles Schumer of New York, who is also the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, and thus the leader.
Yeah.
He says, we are going to codify, in other words, pass into law, essentially the findings of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that every Congress had an opportunity to do ever since 1973, when Roe v. Wade was decided.
Yeah.
So, and they've all ducked it, and they probably all ducked it because people were pretty divided.
Yeah.
I am actually not opposed to it being codified or not codified.
Well, if they can, pass it.
That is a responsibility of Congress to make laws that comport with the Constitution and accomplish the people's will. So this is one area which, even though I do not like Chuck Schumer at all, I'm saying, okay, I will not give you any grief about this.
Yeah, but again,
knock yourself out. Do your duty.
If you can do it, that'd be well. That's our system.
That's the system.
Well, and speaking of that, I have this thought that I've said before to you and so on. This about the insurrection. That we thought about January 6th. There is going to be an insurrection. It's called an election, and the Democrats are going to be buried. It's my thought. And one more thought is, thank God for Fox News.
All right, well, to go along with your election, insurrection, they're still trying to slow walk the January 6th stuff as though they hadn't already got all the data.
Yeah.
And I think that they're saving it either for the 22 or the 24 election. And I don't think they have anything, but I think that they'll scream that they do. So here it goes.
Anyway, thank you very much. And whether you're watching this show or not and so on, it's very nice for me. It gets very cathartic. What is the word I want? Cathartic?
Cathartic. Yeah.
Cathartic
yeah.
For me to get this, to say this on a television show. And by the way, if you ever want to do a television show, please contact us.
And if you're not watching, please ignore this.
Thank you.